Cowardice asks, the question, is it safe? Expediency asks, the question, is it politic? Vanity asks, the question, is it popular? But conscience asks, the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism, one mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everyone. It is a great day to be alive here in the United States. I mean, aren't you feeling it, Scotty? You feeling it right now? You feeling it? You feeling the energy? You feeling the synergy about like everybody? Oh, it's all about love, peace, and harmony here.
Yeah, are you feeling the love, Joe?
Are you feeling the love?
Everybody's just coming together, right? Peace, love, and harmony, right?
Oh man, I tell you what, man, we've been doing this stuff a long time, buddy. We've been doing it a long time, and I have never seen such just, I don't know what to say, kumbaya. That kumbaya spirit that's going on. What am I talking about? Oh my God! Well,
do you notice that it always just conveniently, just conveniently, happens around a certain time when people are supposed to go out and, put that little check mark on a box for the person that they think is going to represent them, their non-representing representatives.
Well, wait a minute. So in that spirit, right? So tonight we have our very special guest. I don't even call him a guest because he can come on anytime he wants, and he knows that. But for folks that don't know, we used to do a broadcast called Freaky Friday, and we had like this thing, right? There was like a three podcast type of I don't know, like a partnership. What do you call it? Like Lord of the Rings? What do they call it?
I would say it
fellowship. Yes, that's what
a collaboration.
A collaboratory fellowship.
Right.
Of extraordinary personalities, right? And so here we were, and so you had Kev Baker, and then you had his right-hand man, the Whistler, and then you had me and Scotty, and then you had Popeye on the other side, right? And it was always 1, 2, 3, or 3, 2, 1, or 1, 3, 2, but we were always there interacting, Hangar 18, you name it. We did all sorts of different things over the years. So I wanted to bring back the Whistler because he's got something to say, and because they are leading the fight in the whole Kumbaya movement over in Scotland, and they even imposed a bill or a law that basically fights against all of that hatred. And it's something we strive for here in the United States. We really do. We really don't want hatred to exist. And we have been failing miserably at it. That's why I brought a subject matter expert here from Scotland so that he can discuss that with us as far as how's it working over there for them and what can we do here to make it more like that.
Oh, Whistles.
You doing okay?
Well, yeah. Well, Joe, we have a lot of good things in Scotland. Well, NHS. we don't pay for an ambulance, we don't pay for an operation. All the things that cost an absolute fortune in America. It's really horrible for people over there.
Yeah.
You need insurance. Do you know what I mean? If you don't get insurance, you're not getting operated on.
Yeah.
You're left to your own devices.
Right.
And anybody over 60-year-old, and even under that, if you're unwell, you can get on a bus and go from one end of Scotland to the other, and it's free. I mean, it's the things, even with college, if you're from Scotland, you don't pay any college fees. Whether in America, God knows how many £1,000 that you've got to spend to send your children to college.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I guess that, to my point, there is a lot of things that were established that worked for a very long time, especially over there. You guys had NHS has been around for a while. This isn't something that just happened. The American health system is corrupt as hell. And when we went to for-profit medicine here, that's when things really went off the rails, you know, and it just went nuts. But, you know, there has been pushes in the past to kind of, I don't want to say socialize medicine, but basically bring it under the government umbrella. And the counter argument to that is, well, when you do that, you know, you stifle competition and you're not going to have as much innovation, and, you know, America's leading the charge. And that's the propaganda of it. But really the reality is it's not. And it's fallen behind miserably. I mean, relative to where we were, like, I remember as a kid or a teenager, the state of medicine was in a much better place. And over time, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse, where the doctor-patient relationship no longer exists, where you're looked at just as a number, more so a liability. That's a problem, or an addict. Yeah, all of these things play a role. That whole doctor-patient relationship was basically decimated. They have, we talk about AI all the time, and they have algorithms that will manage, you know, how often do you have to see a patient to maintain X amount of profitability. Ends up being like 7 minutes. Every 7 minutes, you got to see a new patient. And then how do you diagnose anything in 7 minutes? Well, you don't. You just throw medicine at it, right? Because that's what we do, Scotty. We put all these different medicines out there, and then, hey, just pick and choose. This is what you get. And we don't fix the problem. We just treat the symptom and have a nice life.
Right. You treat the symptoms. They never, you know, deal with the root cause of the issue. And then, you know, of course, if you're dealing with the side effects of one medication, well, hey, here's another medication that'll help you with the side effects from the one you're taking. And, you know, next thing you know, you're stacking on like 5 different medications to mitigate the side effects from another one. And, you know, they're just raking in the dough, right? And, you know, I've always said, right, if they really wanted to fix the healthcare system in the U.S., it really wouldn't be that hard to do. And I mean, look at how much money we spend on the defense budget, right? If you were to take like just a very fraction of a percentage of the amount of money that we spend on defense and just throw that into like fixing the healthcare system, right? Even just at the level of saying, okay, well, let's just kick the can down the road a little longer. That could kick the can down the road a lot longer just by infusing that much cash, you know, from the defense budget into it, you know. But God forbid we even touch any of that, right? Or reallocate all of this like crazy spending that reckless spending that we're doing in other sectors into like putting it into areas that like actually need it.
Right.
So, you know, I
always remember Ron Paul saying all the time, right? We have over 900 bases in over 170 countries. And it's just like, oh my God. And, you know, that's not ignorant of the fact that you need national security and defense. And if you read Alfred Thayer Mahan's book on sea power, you know the importance of having like a strong Navy, blah, blah, blah. But these are different times now. Now where you have technology that, quite frankly, humanity has never ever had before in this iteration of man, right? And it's going to change things on a scale that we can't even comprehend. And
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of like a really huge technological jump, much like the invention of the internet, I would say, right? We're on the next level of that jump, and I think that's what AI is about to provide to us. Is we're
know what I think of all
we're
the
hitting
time?
a new level, like a new era of like technology and the way like we're going to be doing things, because everybody remembers the way we used to do things before the internet. Right. It was all phone calls,
Well, let me
paper,
say this:
filling
not
out
everybody,
forms. Right.
not everybody, not everybody. You got to remember that there's a whole generation now that's grown up with it and has never lived without it. That's weird.
Right. Exactly.
That's weird.
Right. But this is going to be like, well, I mean, think about it, Joe. I mean, when I think about these like jumps in like technology societally, like, we have radio. First, what people, how did people, radio was around before television, and that was the only way people was able to communicate via, long distance, hear the news. Right? I mean, you think about it. When the radio was invented, that was
huge.
A game, yes, an internet moment, a game changer in information and being able to pick up communications almost instantaneously. Right? Radio waves is and from long distances and being able to get news and figure. Then you had the television, which was that next jump. We went from radio to television. Now, not only were you getting that information, auditory, it was visual.
Right.
And, so you had that next level of stimulation, that next level of, going from just hearing it to now you're seeing it. You're seeing it play out, right?
Yeah.
And then you go from television to the internet, where it's not just audio and visual, but now you're interacting with it. You're a part of it now, right? The internet allows you to be part of that, and and then the global connection and everything. It's a huge game changing moment. And then the advent of the smartphone, which then allowed access to the average person everywhere. Now had access to the internet, right? Because before the smartphone, it was only people who could afford, home PC computers, and not everybody had access to the internet.
Dude, you want to know? So let me just put this in perspective. When PCs really first came out, they were thousands of dollars, not hundreds, thousands of dollars,
right?
And you think about what people made, back in the 1980s, what the average salary was, or that was a huge purchase. It wasn't something like it is today, where you've got so much industry and competition. That was a budding industry, so that was very
the only people who were accessing the internet at the time. I mean, of course, even before what we would consider the modern internet, you had like the BBS systems and everything in the 80s, right? But mostly those were being used by either niche enthusiast people who had the money to spend on that, or people in business, right? And it was being used on the business side of things,
or universities, because you had the telnet,
universities and industries.
Telnet system.
And so it took a while for the internet to, but then, once the smartphone hit, everybody had access to it. Your average teenager, grandma, anybody could just get on the internet and access it, and that's a huge game changer. So now we have AI coming, and the way we're going to be interacting with artificial intelligence, and the way that it's going to be infused in every facet of society in our lives. I mean, it's going to be like one of those internet moments.
That and quantum networking, when you start doing quantum networking, it's going to be nuts. And funny enough, computing. And here's a difference, right? So UK spends just about 3% of their GDP on defense, which leaves a greater chunk of their their budget towards other things. One of them being internet connectivity, right? Whistles, you guys got like crazy internet over there, which is nuts. I remember Kev always bragging about it.
Yeah, we have, but we've got, I mean, our internet speeds are really fast. And we've also got Starlink as well.
Oh, do you?
I've got a friend. Yeah, we've got that Starlink, you know, the Elon Musk's satellites going across the sky.
Yeah.
We've got that.
Right.
Here. We've got that here as well, and it's a dish that you put out in your garden or your back garden. Just point it away from all the buildings, and the internet speeds they're unbelievable. Really,
Wow.
really fast.
Yeah, I always remember being jealous of Kev's internet speed. And that it's I only have a gigabyte. Ugh. Yeah, okay, thanks. Appreciate that. Love you a long time. I don't have that. And but that's the thing, is that here, especially in the rural areas, they struggle with connectivity because you just don't have the population density that warrants the installation of high-speed data lines.
Yeah, Starlink is getting pretty big out here in Kansas,
I have to
especially out
imagine
in
it
western
has to be.
Kansas, because there's like no connectivity. You can barely get a cell phone signal out in western Kansas. And another thing that's pretty cool is a lot of storm chasers now are using the mobile Starlink so that they can have constant data access while they're
I mean, you
out
can
there
see how this
chasing
is.
tornadoes.
You can
and
see
stuff.
how this
Yeah,
is
so-
shaping up, right?
Right.
We're turning into like the Borg homeworld. Honest to God, man, look at it. We're surrounding ourselves in this shell of satellites, right? Here we are. Woo!
Yeah.
And they're constantly beaming shit. Then you're gonna have the Musk's other company, that's Neuralink, that's giving you connectivity to your head, constantly. And so why the hell do you need terminals? You don't need anything else. You just think it, and boom, it's
Right,
there.
hey, and then you got the integration between your Neuralink and your Starlink, and hey, there you go.
And just remember too, this is you always compare about what visionaries or people, like in casual conversation, when you're talking about, wow, what is this going to be like? How is this going to happen? And we all have our views on things based on our life experience. And so I always take a kind of a sci-fi route, and
right.
it's seldomly ever right. As a matter of fact, it's way off. It's way off. So that's the problem, is that judging by where we are, like in the 60s, right? They envisioned that technology, the communicator, the tricorder, that was all hundreds of years off into the future. That was like nothing in our lifetimes. And here we are 20, 30 years later, 50 years later, actually, and we have them all. And the only thing,
Right.
the whole space travel thing, but
And what's crazy is that
you don't travel in space.
What's crazy is that we've even surpassed a lot of what they envisioned at the time, right? So, you look at Star Trek from the 60s, right? The communicator, you flip the communicator open. I mean, we're past flip phones, brother. We don't need to flip the communicator open. We've got interactive touch screens that they weren't even thinking of in the 60s at the time.
I know.
And holographic.
My point is that there's all
we've
this
accelerated.
We have,
right.
We have.
We've accelerated.
So this technology slowly but surely is going to keep infiltrating, and I say infiltrating because it really is going to redefine the humanity in every sense. And this is where I think Huxley got it when he wrote Brave New World, is you're going to have really two distinct factions of humans, where you have the ones that comply, that are, go along with the world and everything else, but you're going to see more of a splitting off. And somewhere, somehow, you're going to have this section of humanity that's almost looked at like they're Quakers or Amish, where they're
right.
Like
and
outcasts.
you see a lot of that sort of kind of being played out in a lot of kind of sci-fi video games and stuff right now, like, you know, Cyberpunk 2077, or remember the video game series Deus Ex, Deus Ex, you know, where, you know, you have people that are going this way of integrating into technology and like this transhumanist sort of thing where, you know, people are just kind of choosing this to just integrate into it and to you know, just go with it, and then you have people that resist it and that are like, nah, I'm not wanting to be part of this, and I want to, you know, stay au natural, right? You know, because I don't know what kind of where this road leads to, and you know, that's the thing, you know, and you can already see how much we're tied to technology already. I mean, look at how obsessed people are with their smartphones, and you know, if somebody loses their smartphone, or you take your smartphone away from a teenager, you know, that's used to always having access to that. I mean, it's almost like you're taking a part of their soul away from them. You're taking a part of them away, you know, because people are so bound to that, you know, to having that access to social media and you know, and all of that stuff. So already we've integrated ourselves into
so many
sort
ways.
of a technological sort of grid that we've embedded ourselves into it now, that it's really hard for a lot of people to, you know, like we always talk about, man, like if there's a grid collapse, right? And like for real, the internet like actually goes down, and nobody really has access to the internet, and it really is like it was back in the day. You know, how many kids these days? Like, think about it. How many Gen Z kids, you know, early 20s, you know, teens? How many of them you think can actually pull out a real map on paper and understand
Pokemon Go, dude?
You know, highways and routes and like actually understand how to get from one location to another without having to rely on
Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, you go and find the thing, right? Don't you go? I mean, you gotta go to the map, right? It doesn't tell you how to get there.
I tell you what, Joe, see if I could get the neural link. I would take that, because
would you?
Yeah, because I'm having seizures in my brain, and it just
and you've had it for years, right?
No, I've only had it about a year. And
really?
When it comes on, it shuts you down completely, and it can be quite dangerous, because when you're crossing the road, if you have one, you just stop.
Totally random.
There's nothing you can do. No, it's totally random. And it's affected my memory as well, because I can remember things like, say, when I was 20-year-old. But if I'm watching a TV program and I'm going to make a cup of coffee, I paused it and I come back with my coffee. I could sit there the whole night and not get a clue what I was watching.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of the weirdest things, honestly. It's my memory is...
It's like short-term memories, like kind of getting scrambled a little bit. Yeah. So there's a way where technology can be. There's so many.
Exactly.
You know, it is. Think about it. You get a replicator, right? Now you start replicating things, which I have to imagine we're seeing the very first replicators with like 3D printing. That's kind of where we're starting with that, you know, and they have organic 3D printers that can print food.
And you know, going back, I mean, that, you know, and that's the thing, is that there's the good side to all of this technology, and then there's the other, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because like in the case of whistles, you know, Neuralink could probably be used to really help, you know, because it's any like neurological issues and stuff like that. They said it's been, you know, extremely beneficial. I mean, they had the guy that I think he was paralyzed, and now he can basically control his computer with his mind using the Neuralink. He can move the mouse around just by thinking, you know, and I mean, that's amazing to improve somebody's quality of life like that. I mean, I'm all for that. I mean, if there's any technological advancement that's out there to help somebody, I'm all for it. I mean, look, I'm disabled myself. I'm in a wheelchair, and if anything out there, could can help me or whatever, I'm more than willing to do it. But there's, like I said, there's the both sides of it, because then you've got the people that it's helping, and then eventually down the road there's just going to be people that are just going to want to utilize it for more.
There's always people that are going to utilize it for more nefarious purposes, of
nefarious issues and
right?
and things, and how is the military going to be utilizing something like Neuralink on soldiers? What kind of things are going to be going on in a lot of these sort of black project sort of
fearless. Make them
right
fearless.
I mean, this is when we start going into stuff like super soldier programs and weird things like that, because
there's a lot that's happening with that. You're absolutely right. And what I want to say is, in reality, there's always a section of society, or in social behavior, there's a section of the population, albeit small, that has overwhelming and abundant control of just about everything. It's how Bernays said that the world is controlled by a small group of dominant men. And it's so true. You look at the mainstream media, at the peak of its power, it was controlled by 6 people, and they controlled the entire mainstream media. And it's even worse today, but people have come to not really accept them, and they see through it now. And once the genie's out of the bottle, it's out of the bottle. But with technology, there's a lot of a new way to get out misinformation or disinformation, and then using that Bernaysian newspeak to kind of twist it and say, no, what they're saying is misinformation, what we're saying is right. And it all goes back to propaganda, where Goebbels, who was a big Bernays fan, huge Bernays fan,
right,
was tell a lie over and over, and people will believe it's true. And it absolutely, that's all you have to do, is just keep saying it and saying it and saying it. Eventually people just kind of move on. They unplug and they move on, but it's in there, and it's made its mark, and it's etched. So there's a lot of things that we've grown up with, that we've learned and accepted as fact, that truly is not. And so it's harder and harder now to discern what is right, what's wrong, what's real, what's fake. That's where I see the big danger. And as a matter of fact, it was the Epoch Times who just wrote a piece called "The Golden Age of Disinformation Has Just Begun." It's only just begun. And it used to be like you had the money trust of the late 19th, early 20th centuries, your JP Morgan, that says, okay, you know what? If I'm getting all this flack for what I'm doing, right? And at that time, he was getting a lot of flack because he was providing the funding and basically controlling the entire railroad system, because there was some huge rivalries with the advent of the railroad, and he couldn't control them all. But he can control the money. And that's how he started. Well, he took that concept and he kind of moved it over into news, and he started buying up all the major news generators. He bought them all up, and he didn't have to buy the local ones, all your local newspapers, just the ones that fed him the information, and he could control the narrative. And that's exactly what he did. But now there's just so much out there that it's hard to even fathom oftentimes what's true and what's not true. And that's the thing that I see too, is not only do you have a level of the ability to think about it, you get an implant, can they hack your brain? Is it a possibility? Can they send information in there that you can't stop from receiving?
Right.
These are
It's
all things that you take a look at past actions of our government here in the United States, where they've tested on people, they've given people syphilis, they've sterilized people, all in the name of, oh, well, we're experimenting. Oh, well, we're running a drill. So, we'll gas people in a subway as part of a learning experience or training. And the people don't know. They never consented. Look at the chemtrails every day. Oh, there's no such thing. It's all hogwash. Ha ha. Yeah, but there it is, right?
Right.
It's evidently science. Just maybe I don't get it, but science is pretty simple about what a contrail is and then what's not a contrail. And you still have those people out there that have to push that narrative. And less people are clinging to it because I kind of feel like more and more people are getting desperate. You have, like, here in the United States, and this is another issue, Whistles, in the United States. Real estate. Real estate that market has been manipulated for a very long time. But in the last 15 years or so, basically since Lehman's crash, these Wall Street hedge funds and BlackRocks and all these power hungry people needed some place to get the returns that they were getting, and they were running out of options. So they started buying up housing, and they drove up the housing market, and they made a false shortage, basically. And it's caused huge upheavals here in the United States, where you have massive homelessness going on. It's seriously understated. And you're basically seeing the return of your pre-depression, when immigration was really heavy at the turn of the 20th century. You had all of these families coming in, and they needed to have a place to go. And you had multifamily housing, where you had 3 generations of the same family living in under the same roof. And now we're to that point where we have to go there again, because when the average price of a house is $400,000, but the median income isn't anywhere close to being able to support or pay for that, what do you do? What do you do?
Right.
So over in the UK, how do you guys deal with that? Are you having a similar experience as far as housing and shortages and things like that?
No, not really, Joe. We got a lot of asylum seekers, and they get a house no problem.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, there's plenty houses here, but there's a lot of gentrification going on, where there's
Is that right?
people. Yeah, I mean, they're in houses. They put the prices up so that the people can't afford it, and they've got to move out, and they move the posh people in. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that going on. But I mean, the housing, there's not really much. Like the prices differ in every place. London, I mean, you maybe pay $300,000 for a flat. You know what I mean? Whereas $300,000 or £300,000 in one of the well-to-do areas will get you a really big house. Do you know what I mean? It's where you actually come from. That's where the money goes, really.
It's funny you say that, because it used to be that way here, where you had you had neighborhoods, like, for example, you have your more affluent neighborhood, then you have the middle of the road, and of course then you have your starter homes or low income housing and things like that. But there is a serious, like, I'm looking at things and saying, how in the hell is this math working? Where the median income is this, but the cost of an average home is this. Whoa, dude. And even in rural America,
Right.
the prices are going. It's not like there's safe havens here, unless you maybe Youngstown, Ohio. I remember at one time you could buy a house on a credit card there, because I mean it's just when the steel industry
Well,
collapsed,
they're
there was
creating
nothing.
they're creating a false shortage, right?
That's exactly
bought,
what it is.
yeah, they've bought it all up, and now that they have it, they can charge whatever they want for it, and they're keeping the price, super high, so nobody can afford it, and it's ridiculous, and that's why you're also seeing, the rental prices are
Rental
going
prices are
up,
nuts, man.
and yeah, right, and it's
Okay, so
they're
then,
essentially holding everyone hostage by keeping the prices of housing so high.
okay, so I have I got to share this with everybody, because I found this very, I don't want to say entertaining, more revealing than anything. And so the first thing I want to say to everybody out there is there's a solution, and it's a very simple one, but a very painful one. But it's very simple. And the solution really is, in the grand scheme of things, do nothing. Do nothing. That's it. That's all you have to do. If everyone in the United States did one of two things, or even both, this would be a huge game changer. And the French do this all the time, by the way, which is why I am totally, my hats are off to the French, because when they want to get shit done, they shut down, and good for them. So you shut down, you do nothing.
Right.
You bring the economy to a
people
grinding
don't
halt.
people really don't realize how effective that is to
Just stop.
just straight up shut it down and just don't do anything.
Just stop.
Just don't participate. Just stay
Okay.
home. Don't participate in anything whatsoever, and just let it go for what, a week, something
Right.
like that, a week or two. And boy, when everybody decides to just not do anything, and everything comes to a grinding halt, they take notice of that kind of stuff. That's
because that's how you stop. You got to hit them in the wallet. We don't have, for example, it's always the government, the limitless pockets of the government that come and they oppress either civilly through the court system, or they do it in so many ways, right? And we've talked ad nauseum about it on this podcast for years and years and years, and I don't need to go through that, but and everybody knows it. But there's a way that we can fight back. Now, there's a representative out of Michigan, or a candidate out of Michigan that's running for rep. That's and I gotta find his name, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later. He's talking about, hey, don't pay your income tax. Just stop. Just everybody stop. It's like Aaron Russo's great film, America, Freedom to Fascism.
right.
What a great film, and it just speaks to how we're in a system that isn't real, but it's real. It's like it's not.
Right. Like when I try to
How do you
explain,
say
because
it?
you have those
It's a
people that
hoax.
are like, right. You have those people that are like, oh man, laws are just all a construct, man, and it doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, okay, well then go out in the parking lot over there and commit a crime, and then tell me that it doesn't exist, because you're going to get arrested, right?
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
it's a construct, but it is a construct.
It's a real thing, right?
It's that you know that we have to operate in, and at some level, as a society, we have to adhere to it, unfortunately, but it's it's the truth. So there's only so much that you can do before you actually do come up to against some resistance against the system, so
I want to bring this up, and I'm going to share this with everybody, just because this explains a lot. It really truly does. And by the way, there's no way that you can come out on the other side and be any better. I just don't see it. I mean, you're just going to have a different variation of this kind of stuff when we just, as human beings, our behavior seems to go full circle, and then it starts over again, and we're just this cyclical type of thing, right? So here we are, and what I have here is Zero Hedge, one of my favorite publications, and it's Biden's head of economic advisors tries to explain government borrowing. So basically, there's a new way of thought. Basically, ever since interest rates went to zero, there was a new way of thought as far as how things go. And then it was like that way of thought combined with, say, G. Edward Griffin's Creature from Jekyll Island got together and had a baby. And it was modern monetary theory. And it's really weird because this is, again, it's real, but it's not real, but it is, but it's not, but it is. And it basically says that the government has the power to create money. So why are we paying interest on, why are we borrowing something that we can just create? What are we doing borrowing it? Which lends, that's the whole argument with the Federal Reserve. The banksters control the monetary supply, and we basically pay them to do it, and that's the interest. And there's a whole, it's a big tax, man. It's crazy. It's not right. It's not fair. It is a big hoax. But yeah, and a laundering scheme. But you can't really explain it because there's really no law to say that you have to do it or pay, like income tax. There's no law that says you have to pay it for most people. There are for some. It's defined in the law, but for the most part, people aren't obligated to pay income tax by law. We enter into a contract. They basically force you to sign a contract, which is your tax form when you go to an employer or anything else, that you are obligating yourself to pay it. But there's actually no law that says that you're required to pay it. And that's what Aaron Russo found out in his documentary. But this is interesting. So this says here, modern monetary theory says government is different. It owes the money to itself, and the debt can be canceled at will. In MMT theory, it says a benevolent government would spend the money wisely, cancel all the debt, or pay interest to itself, and everyone will essentially live happily ever after. But this is where it gets funny, and it says the notion's really amusing, but it was even more amusing to watch Jared Bernstein try to address questions on it. So this is the guy, right? And I guess there's a documentary coming out called Finding the Money. And this is one of the previews for it. And it's crazy. Here you go.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, I mean, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to so Yeah, I guess I'm just I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like
Wow.
the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't think there's anything confusing there, but the whole time he's stammering and stuttering and well, I don't well, doing bonds and
and so what does that mean? It means that the debt is a scam. It truly is a scam.
right.
It is. However, who's the perpetrator of the scam? Is it the government or is it the banks? And when you look at it, it is a consortium, man. They are tied together. They are together. And so what does that mean? What does that mean? That melding is the very basis of the foundation of fascism. When
Right,
you have
exactly.
private and public power coming together to control the masses, that's what that is by definition. It doesn't change reality by saying it's not. It doesn't change reality by any other way. And so you think about it, why do we continue to go down this road when we truly have at our fingertips right now with all this crazy technology, like a really true free humanity moment? We could really do it, but it has to start with people willing to just do nothing. You have to be able to sit. I think everybody's so like, it's just beat into their head. How do you change? And this is the next question. How do you change everything you've ever known to something totally different and fly by the seat of your pants, hoping that it doesn't get hijacked or co-opted? And, what happens on the other side? Because,
Right.
People with means.
And you got to think about how many times this has probably happened throughout human history.
Right, right.
Where we've gone through these cycles of, a certain system being in place for so long, and then finally that system can no longer sustain itself, and it implodes and it collapses, and then everyone has to come out of the other end and rebuild in some way, or find another way to rebuild. But then what ends up happening is that the system they end up rebuilding follows the same cycle eventually, right? So yeah, and it's just something that I think, unfortunately, for whatever reason, right, is just embedded in our human nature, within our DNA. It's just something part of our species, right? Where we go through these cycles of, our civilizations rise and then they collapse and then they rise and collapse, and I mean, even if you want to look at it, just from a purely sort of biological, sort of scientific, quote unquote, standpoint, I mean, look at the cycles that like ant colonies and bee colonies, and they collapse and then they find another place and rebuild again. And they do it on a much smaller, more micro scale. Yep. But we're humans. We're we're a species that has our own traits and things that we do, and for whatever reason, we're a tribal species that follow certain leaders, much like a ant colony will have a queen or a leader or something like that. Not everybody can be a queen, not everybody can be a leader, not every so most of your population are followers.
Very paternal, very paternal, as far as that's concerned.
Right.
But so, which also, you think about what DNA is. Here we're going now manipulating DNA, and that's another thing too. Now we're getting into programming. That's that, we're designed to be a certain way, do certain things. It's not that, when the Tower of Babel fell, right? That was that was basically the moment that we're at now, then, right? And so the first thing that happens is
We
God
seem
says,
to
okay,
always get we seem to get at the cusp of where we get a little too big for our britches,
well,
right? And we start tinkering and playing around with things that we shouldn't be messing with, and we think we know better when we don't, and
well, he
and
said,
then all
he
of
said
a
it best.
sudden,
He said it best when he says, hey, if I don't confuse these languages, there's nothing these humans aren't capable of. And it's true. It's true. We were made in God's image. That's pretty heavy. That one statement's pretty heavy, and it's pretty telling too, which is why when Musk first explained the simulation theory, it hit all the check marks for me as far as how I can see how that is very valid, and that it makes total sense. Where if we're in a creation, and
yeah, and
here
it
are the
doesn't
parameters.
clash with religion or
No,
anything in any way,
no, it has
really, at
nothing to do
all.
with
If you
that.
think
But it's
right,
the only way you get something from nothing. It's the
right.
only way you get Big Bang, right? And God said,
Hmm.
execute, woof, woof, and there it was, and it came out, and that's the way it is, right? Something from nothing, Big Bang, hit return, the program starts, and off it goes, and here we are, and I see how there's some validity to the cyclical nature of it all. How it starts over, just like the games you play on these. I'm addicted to that game Icarus on Steam right now,
Mm.
and it's basically you get blasted off to a world they terraformed, and it basically it goes bad. It just goes totally sideways, and you have to survive on this planet and find your own material. You start there with nothing. And you have to craft a wood spear, and you basically start from there, and a stone axe, and you work your way up to making like electronics and everything else. But it takes time and effort, and you're kind of building this thing. And we always seem to do that. We get to the pinnacle, and then boom, we crash back to like the Stone Age.
Right.
There's never really we got it this time. Let's try this, and it doesn't like.
Yeah, we never
It's
seem
not.
to be able to break
It's
out
always
of that
catastrophic.
cycle.
Yeah, it's
Right,
always
right.
catastrophic. So that's pretty concerning. I'll just put it that way, because we seem to be heading full speed ahead towards that, and I don't. And that's just our behavior, because then you see that there's this kind of convergence happening. That these cycles are actually happening almost in synchronicity with each other, and it's nuts. Like, for example,
And they're happening faster.
yes, like you live in a very volatile area, the Midwest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've been dealing with a lot of weather events. We've always had a lot of weather events. There are cyclical times in our weather cycles where we get these different anomalies that happen where it's heavier than normal, or you get big catastrophic storms like what's happening down in Houston. But that's not to say there hasn't been any hanky-panky going on. In hour number 2, we'll
Right.
talk about that with weather modification and things like that. We briefly brought up chemtrails. Of course they exist. They've existed since the 1940s, even probably before that. But they'll tell you they don't exist. There was just an article over about China using weather modification.
Mm.
And there was recently there was another place out in the Far East that was using it and flooded. They overdid it, just like we did in Vietnam when we seeded the clouds.
It was Dubai.
That's right, Dubai. Yeah, they flooded it. Dubai International
flooded.
Airport. Yeah.
Yeah, they flooded
Oops.
Dubai, man. Oops.
I don't think we're supposed to get that much water in the desert. No, no, it wasn't supposed to happen.
Just move to Scotland, because in Scotland it rains every single day.
But that's what we're saying. We could siphon
Yeah.
it off.
Yeah, I think that this year our summer is on a Wednesday. And that's how bad it is. You know what I mean? You get
Nice.
one day or maybe sun. The rest
Okay.
is rain. Every single day.
But so
And
we
it's-
take, but this is what I'm saying. Say you put a, why, I don't know why we're doing all this turbine and sprinkly and metal stuff in the atmosphere, that kind of stuff. Why do that when we can just put big giant turbines, right? That just suck up all the moisture from Scotland and Seattle. And we'll just redistribute it. We'll do it based on equity.
Yeah.
We'll use woke math to come up with this, and we'll redistribute the water.
We can charge you a fortune. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We can charge you a
Well, no,
fortune for that and make everybody happy.
I don't think so. Your cancer water, I'm not paying for it. No, I'm not paying a lot for your cancer water, dude. The average age of people over in the UK is like, for males, is like 53 or something like that. You guys are like swimming in.
I'm doing well.
I know you are. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. That's why when you had the picture of your mama on there, it was like, you got good genes, brother. So, I mean,
Yeah, I
seizures
know.
aside, I mean, you at least got the longevity. I mean, you may be drooling on yourself, but you'll live. It's all good, right?
Right.
Well, that's our number one's done. Our number two's on the way. Everybody watching, thanks for supporting. Go to kgradb.com and get a membership. We've got a huge collection of all these great broadcasts. And this is stuff that quite frankly, you're not going to find anywhere else, whether you're into Sasquatch or cryptoids or true crime or even a little freedom link. There's and so much more. So if you like
What about
this,
flat earth? Have you covered flat earth?
did you just? I'm going to have a talk with Bill about this. This is not good. No, I don't.
So many people.
Well, hey, wait a minute. I'm in my best woke ability. I will say that I welcome flat Earth.
Oh my God, Joe! Joe, come on!
I welcome flat Earth, and that I hope we could have a dialogue sometime. Get out of here, flat Earth! Come on. Oh my God! Did you have to
We'll
say
be back,
that?
everyone.
Oh yeah, please. Oh God, Bill, take it away.
That's what I want on.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm gonna take it for the energy. I'm gonna take it for the play. I'm gonna take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? no problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at kgradb.com.
Well, hour number 2 here of the Freedom Link, yes. And
Mr. Joe Joseph, can you flip your microphone down, please?
Yes, of course. And here we are. Thank you so much. And we are having us a little bit of a yeah, that was a hell of an ending to hour number 1. Well, let me do the wait. Let me do this in my best Kev voice if I can. Whistles. Don't you know it's flat and round at the same time? You know, he'd find something to go be like that. You know. So,
Joe, I watched. This is the thing I'm into just now, and I watched flat Earth debates on YouTube. And to be honest with you, it's quite frightening the amount of grown-age men that actually believe that the Earth is flat.
Right.
These people,
it's crazy.
These people have kids. Do you know what I mean? Are they teaching their kids this?
But I mean, think about it. I mean, but think about it. I mean, honestly though. But I mean, think about it. How is it any different than, you have adult people out there who believe that children have the ability to consent to having their genitals removed, right? And things like that. So, I mean, the level of delusion that we're seeing in society on all levels is what's disturbing, and
think about how a top is, right?
Right.
So a top, you first start the top and it's spinning and it's smooth and everything else. Then slowly over time, you start to wobble until that wobble gets so chaotic that finally it just goes off the rails and it stops. And basically that's what's happening with society and the cycle in general. That's what happens is it starts out with a lot of energy and then it peters out and then boom, it's done. And look, man, having spent 20 years doing satellite communications work, right? I can tell you, even HF, let's just do ham radio. It doesn't work on a flat Earth. That's the problem. All that stuff just goes down. What? How do I get my signal to go and circumvent the globe? How does it bounce off the atmosphere and get back to me? It's supposed to go. If it goes that way, it's going to keep going that way, right? Just go out.
Right.
Doesn't do that. So that's the issue. What about ducting? How about we start talking like that, and then the whole atmospheric dynamics thing? Oh man, that's crazy too. It's just what I'm trying to say is these are things we're indoctrinated at very early ages to believe things. Think about this, right? And this is something I heard a long time ago. And this is where humanity screws up from day one with our kids. You're so right. We teach them at the very earliest ages that it's okay to lie. We do. Hey, it's Joey's first Christmas. Santa's coming down the chimney. And oh yeah, Santa's real. Oh yeah, for years and years you're telling the kids until finally they figure out. But until then, it's just lie after lie. The Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny. And that's right. It is. It's earth shattering when you find out that all that crap's not real and you've just been sold a bill of goods. And it does damage, but it also instills a behavior at the earliest age. And that behavior actually goes and poof, I think it explodes into something just what we have now, basically, Whereas that Right. That doesn't happen a long time ago because you didn't have that commercial interest that was pushing it so hard. Like engagement rings, right? That was all a result of the De Beers family and their control on the diamond supply. You know, people in the 19th and 18th century didn't buy freaking engagement rings. There was none of that crap. It was about you didn't get married to get a tax break. You know, it had nothing to do with taxes.
And then
Because
it became normalized in advertisements and everything on
right.
TV, right? You see the diamond commercials,
are a
like
girl's best friend. Ugh.
yes,
Right, and all that stuff.
diamonds. She'll love you forever.
She'll love you
know,
forever. Yes, yes. Okay, yeah, great. You know, but the fact of the matter is, that instills like this area of angst and stress and holy crap, how am I going to afford this? What am I going to do? You know, every Christmas, think about the parents, you know, oh man, how am I going to do this one? Think about all those times you had it, right? And you woke up. How many times were you actually not disappointed at Christmas? How about zero?
Yeah.
How about every Christmas? I was freaking disappointed as a kid, you know, and that's no knock on my parents. They did what they thought was good. And quite frankly, it was based on, I guess, the standard of things. But that's what I'm saying. Where did the standard come from? Where does it all come from? Where's it all rooted?
right.
So you take a look at that. And deeply, this is where I say Bernays is like, he was the guy that started the downward spiral. He was the guy that started the behavioral patterns that just led to our demise. When we started to call the Department of War, Department of Defense, you know what I mean? It was called war for a long time for a reason, because there was no reason to hide it or debate it or anything else, because that's what it was. These are warships, you know? So everything then became a mind-bending exercise. What was it? World War I. You know, they had to go to war to peace or something for democracy. It was all about democracy, right? And you hear that all the time. What's the president right now? That Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. That's a Bernaysian saying from World War I that they just rehash. That the threat to democracy, if we don't do this, then that's a threat to democracy. That's Bernaysian. That started a long time ago. And it's all baloney. It's all bullshit. And it's done to control the masses. I'm telling you, folks, you can download propaganda for free from archive.org. I think it is the internet Wayback Machine. And you'd be astounded if you actually take the time to read it. It's not a large book. The first chapter will blow your mind. It'll suck you right in, because you're going to instantly read this and start going through what he's thinking, how he does it, how he controls it, how he executes. And you're like, you can think of 50 things right off the bat where you're like, wow, I've seen this time and time and time again.
Well, yeah, because he laid the blueprint for modern, for propaganda, right? I mean, that's what he laid that foundation.
But
and
I think his most important work was the first one, was crystallizing public opinion. The one before that, that was
right.
like,
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, because he also laid the groundwork for modern commercialization and advertising and consumerism.
Think about this. Think about this.
Right.
Consumer is a term that Bernays came up because he came up with it because of his disdain for us. Basically, that's what it was. You're a consumer. That means useless eater in a term. It's derogatory.
Right. Yeah,
derogatory.
It's not a flattering term by any means.
People went, well, you know, consumers out there are concerned. You hear those terms all the time floated around. No one thinks of it. It's because it's been put in circulation, and over time, it's been readily accepted, and we have assimilated. And we don't think anything of it. But every time you hear that, there's a control freak out there that's laughing. They're laughing. Because
to them, when they hear the word consumer, what they really hear is the term bottom feeder.
Bottom
whatever,
feeder.
Right.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So, and I'll give you another example. Prior to the 1920s, it was taboo for women to smoke, right? So what happens is American Tobacco Company goes to Bernays and says, hey, you know what? We got a thing here because 50% of our market won't buy cigarettes because it's phallic and women don't smoke, right? So what does he do? He calls all the big major newspapers and he says, hey, you know what? What he did prior to calling the newspapers is he got some debutantes from New York City. They had a parade going, and it was really, the women's suffrage movement had really hit a peak at that time. And they had a lot of momentum going on with the voting rights and everything else. And so he arranged for these debutantes to march down in this parade and take out their torches of freedom and put them in their mouth and smoke it in support of women's suffrage. And wouldn't you know it, their sales went through the roof because of those torches of freedom, which is what women lit up, because they were supporting the women's suffrage freedom movement. He tied it to that. I mean, a guy came up with some genius things, but you can see the outright manipulation.
Right.
And it's
He's
just
like,
yeah,
it's evil genius level sort of manipulation of the masses, right? And it's like, hey, go show them how much of a strong, independent woman you are, and go give yourself some lung cancer, right? And now we've acquired 50%, another whole segment of the market, for the tobacco companies to tap into, because it wasn't accessible before. So it's crazy. It literally is like evil genius level manipulation that he was engaged in and really tapped into. And like I said, I mean, it shows the level of that they went into researching human psychology, and the things that the certain buttons that you can press and a human will just instinctively react to certain stimuli, and Pavlovian responses, and emotional manipulation, and things that trigger the reptilian areas of our brain that we our impulse control, and things like that. It's insane. And then all of that has been used, all of that Bernaysian stuff you were talking about, that's what's being used by social media. That's what's being used by all of these companies that want to track and data mine you and keep you addicted to constantly going on the platform and interacting with it. For the past, I would say, year, I really haven't been on social media. I very, very rarely log in.
Here.
And I very rarely check. I stopped interacting with it. It was becoming, it just, yeah,
I get it. I want to bring something. This is Dr. Cloward-Piven, who I call Edward Bernays.
This
Bernays
guy
Jr.
is crazy. Yeah, this guy is wild. Yeah.
So I will tell you, first off, you brought up the reptilian brain. Well, Dr. Rapai was one of the creators, if not the creator, of the triune brain method. And he basically claims to have unlocked the human psyche, which I truly believe, considering some of the things that, I wouldn't say he's unlocked the psyche, but he basically embraced Bernays and his studies, and he took them to the next level. And so now, he's getting older now, as you can see, he's not a young man. He's been doing this for a long time, but he has been basically employed by every Fortune 100 company out there, and he demands no less than 7 figures for everything he does. And now his focus is on, or has been recently on, retail and this village concept. And that's the thing that you have to see is these are the people that provide the tools to the control freaks to be able to get done what they want to get done. He develops the way to get the message out and to do all that, right?
He's the one that develops the method, that puts in all of the kind of hard work and everything that of actually doing the research and figuring all of this stuff out, and then he hands all of the knowledge and the ability to do it, over to these corporations or whatever to,
So this right here is like a trailer. Right. This is like a trailer, right? He has, and you can go to his YouTube channel. You can see he doesn't have a lot of subscribers. A lot of people don't know about Dr. Rapai, but the guy is a freaking genius. And again, he's been doing this a long time. You'll see a lot of his stuff on there when you watch this stuff, it's a little dry, I'll be honest with you, but the information, you're instantly going to go, whoa. Like, I can't believe that that's why I think the way I think, or that I've done what I did because, or I made this decision because. You're going to tie some of this stuff back to things that you've done or things that you've seen or marketing campaigns or whatever it is. And you're going to see basically the operating system behind the message. And this is one of the latest ones. Why your brand needs a village of origin. Check this out.
In order for a product or a brand to go global, it needs a village of origin. When I say village of origin, it doesn't have to be a real village. When I did the code for Jack Daniels, around the world, people knew that they were like from Tennessee, you see. So I was in Russia, and young people told me, oh, we love Jack Daniels, but we hate the Americans. And I say, okay, so you drink Jack Daniels? Yeah, but it's not American, it's Tennessee. Oh, okay. So the village of origin is a place where you belong, where you have some values, old craftsmanship and something that comes with a tradition. And so something you have to bring to the world that is very unique, a value, an art, a talent that you have in this region. But then you should be proud of this village of origin and promote it. Today, we have a new trend that is very important, is deglobalization. Globalization is over, is passé, is finished. We have protectionism. We have defense of nationalities. We have this is a whole new movement around here that because globalization was not respecting these differences and trying to make a mashed potato out of it. Yeah? And so today, all this little village of origin, all these little cultures are fighting back. They want to defend their own value, their own code, their own culture code. And this is why we have deglobalization. We need to move to a notion of respecting the cultures, respecting every culture as something to bring to the global world, but we need to respect the uniqueness of each of these cultures. So the next step is not going to be globalization. It's going to be the united culture of the planet together, sharing what they have done the best, what they can contribute the best to each other.
Interesting.
So now you're starting to see like this evolution going on, because what happened? You had a pushback, and you're seeing a pushback right now in all sorts of areas of society, whether it be the UK, whether it be America, whether it be Europe, everywhere in the West is rebelling against what they feel is the natural way of things, right? And because it goes against our own DNA oftentimes. And we're being forced to accept it. And the thing is most people now are awake to the knowledge that the control freaks are trying to jam something new down our throat. Whereas before, we would have been a subservient society, where if it was a public service announcement or it was like a short film before a movie, it was readily accepted and people trusted the government on the whole, or, these people in power. In the 80s, Wall Street was worshipped. I mean, they made movie after movie glorifying Wall Street in the 80s. And it just, pounded away. Ooh, I want to be like that. I want to get there. That was the vision of success. That's kind of what that brought. Now that's not the case. And you're starting to see a divergence going where people are, these little villages, these little sections of society, these social networks are starting to form. And or what people refer to oftentimes as echo chambers, and is it truly echo chambers, or is it people, is it hitting that reptilian side, that survivability instinct, and you're trying to surround yourself with people of like-minded interest, right?
So I was going to say, everyone is like starting to gravitate, like you said, into these quote unquote echo chambers, but it's really like kind of pack mentality where, in a way, like you said, maybe it's a form of like protection, right? Where we kind of group up with people of like-mindedness and whatnot, and it's a form of protection and comfort, if you will. Yeah, I've never kind of thought of it from that aspect, of of human nature, but it does kind of make sense. And as things get more and more crazy, right, and things become more and more chaotic, and if things can continue to devolve, if you will, you're gonna see more and more people that are going to group together, people of like-minded, of like minds, on all spectrums, on all sides, whether it be left, right, or whatever you want to call it. People are going to find their quote unquote tribe, if you will. And
do you find that happening? Do you find that happening over in the UK a lot, Whistles? Are you seeing a lot of the like with your latest PM that just resigned? Is that because of the pushback to what he was trying to push down people's throats? Has there been like a divisive type of atmosphere? What's going on over there?
Yeah, I think it is the pushback, Joe, because he was trying to come in with some crazy ideas, the way people should do things, the way people should live, taking money off people that can't really afford it. You know, I mean, there was a lot of things that he was doing that were they were over the top, really. And to be honest, I'm glad he's away. But the thing is, whoever we get, they'll just do the exact same thing.
Same thing.
There's no difference. There's no difference from whatever party they come from. It's somebody else doing the exact same thing.
That's right. Republic rats here in the United States, right?
And that's the problem, right? And that goes back to what I was just talking about. It's everybody's sick of it. Everybody's sick of, like, no matter who's in charge, they're getting screwed either way, regardless of what party is in charge, what political party is in charge.
And they people tie their identity to this. I mean, they invest a lot into these political parties. You know, the ones that I'm talking about the average Joe Schmuckatelli that's just, going to vote and may contribute because he has real needs and wants and desires and wants to see things done a certain way. Okay, I get it. But they're all in cahoots.
Right.
The game is rigged. It's not going to happen.
What would happen, Joe? What would happen if nobody voted?
Okay, so that's right now. That's a struggle. Like, give you an example. Down in Australia, it's compulsory. You have to. You'll get arrested if you don't, or fined, or both.
Crazy.
They do that because they have to maintain the illusion that it's legitimate, and they can't maintain that illusion if it's not supported by the masses, right? So here in the United States, we have abysmal voter turnout. We really truly do. But what's been telling about these primaries, this is the first time I've ever seen states put basically no commitment, or like a protest vote, like none of the above. And that's a critical measure, because if you have 10, 12% of people in a Democratic primary that are saying that they don't support anybody that we see, this is all trash, that's significant. So here in the United States, with 330 million people, that's 30 million people, right? 33 million people. Jesus, 10%. That's a lot of people. That can 33 million people can move things and change things, and they wield a lot of power. And that's just, you think about that. That's a very telling measure. And quite frankly, I think they've opposed that on the ballots strictly because that's so telling, and people will be, let's just say, they want people to go with the flow, because when they don't, that's when things become unstable. And whether you like it or not, people have used the internet to really enrich their knowledge, and knowledge is power. And a lot of people are feeling pretty empowered over it. Sometimes it's misdirected. Sometimes it's co-opted. These protests going on with, like Columbia and all these universities, you have really well-intentioned people there doing well-intentioned things that I applaud. War is not in our best interest, ever. It's never in the best interest of you or me or the common person. And I can tell you firsthand, that's why these first-person shooter games were developed. That's why no hesitation targets were developed, because it's not in our DNA to want to kill each other. It's not. Something has to go haywire up here for you to be able to take a life of somebody else. It just does. I mean, unless you are backed in a corner and you're defending yourself, there's something kooky going on if you get some pleasure or something out of killing somebody else. And they had a real problem on their hands because most people wouldn't pull the trigger. So DARPA had to develop the first-person shooter game to help desensitize, and then what happens? Oh, well, it works so well. Why don't we just give it to the kids? That's good. Let's just do that, because that's the best. That'll do it. And then we'll have generation of shooters, and we won't care. They won't hesitate anymore. Well, what damage has that done? I don't know. I can't imagine it's positive. I
love me a good game of Doom, though.
Same here. I'm not gonna lie. But what are the consequences of that on the societal scale?
Right. Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's another one of those things that, look, when I was talking about how you had radio was one of those moments, and then you had TV, and then remember about the talk about what effect does TV having on the kids, right? They're just sitting around the idiot box, just absorbing everything in, and violent movies, and what are they watching, and then you had video games, what are they playing, what are they doing, and I think sure, yeah, there's an effect on kids, but it has an effect on everybody as a whole. I mean, this is a societal issue as a whole of being bombarded with this overstimuli of information and whatnot, and it's only accelerating. You know, it's went from radio to TV to video games to the internet to now you have your cell phone on you and you're constantly have information just bombarding you at all times, social media, news, YouTube, everything is just there, constantly pinging your phone, update, notification. This influencer has posted, this channel that you like has posted something new. Watch this, watch that.
That's right. It's overstimulation.
Yeah.
It's overstimulation.
Yeah.
And what happens when people are overstimulated? What happens when animals are overstimulated? They go wacky. They go crazy. Take a cat, right? And just come on, Whistles, you know this. You're a cat lover too, right? Take a cat and just really rub the shit out of it, right? What do? They get all crazy, right? They get all agitated. Well,
I've got five cats, Joe.
You're up to 5 cats now? Oh,
yeah, I know. June is a crazy cat lady.
Is she? So is Ange. She's a crazy cat lady. No doubt about it.
By the way,
100%.
Talking about June, Joe. I'll have to leave you to it because June's in hospital because she can't see.
Oh no, I saw, and my prayers go out to her. Really, I hope she gets resolution on that. I
hope so. But
you go ahead and do your thing, and thanks for popping on with us, Whistles. Kind of giving us the
problem.
old UK, and anytime, where we're at.
Yeah. I'll be there next week, no problem.
Okay, buddy. We'll see it. We'll see.
All right, man.
We love you a long time. We truly do.
Love you a long time. Great to talk to these boys, honestly.
Yeah, we'll see you later, buddy.
Oh, it was great seeing you, man.
Okay. So then of course, we brought up ad nauseum. We brought him Yuri Bezmenov, right? So the mind control just didn't happen on the Bernays side. Well, of course, we had to go and into this. Got to remember, warfare is often fought without a shot being fired. And during the Cold War and after, there was a lot of, and continues to be a lot of control, mind control. You see a lot of push to do something going on, pushing socialism.
Right.
Ideological subversion. That is a phrase.
Here's ideological
I'm afraid
subversion.
Some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used
which is what
the
you're
phrase
seeing now.
ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process, which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism.
Right. Yep, you're muted, Joe.
Thank you. That was incredibly prophetic in so many ways.
It was.
But it was all because they took Bernaysianism, they applied it in such a way to bring about this idea that, how do you say it? How many country music concerts do you go to where, hi, America, freedom, and all that stuff?
Right.
We're not free. We're not free. If people wanted to be free, it is a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of pain. And there's a lot of reward to go along with it too. But we have made the collective choice, and we all have. Why? Because oftentimes the other choice is too painful an option to even confront or consider. And there's more than one choice. We don't live in a two-dimensional world, so you have all sorts of different choices. But we seem to be locked in and controlled to believe that we have to participate. We have to be a part of this thing when truly you don't. The issue is then enough people start to do it. That's when the pushback happens. That's when the co-opting happens. That's when the government intervenes. That's when every nefarious and dark force out there emerges and puts their full force behind it.
When something organically starts to bubble up and gain traction, they have to cut it off before it reaches the point of no return, at least in their eyes, right? Before it snowballs out of control and they lose control. So that's when you start seeing, like you said, the co-opting of movements, infiltration, and things starting to get shut down or collapse from within in order for them to maintain that power structure, that control.
So I think a good thing to do, because in all honesty, and let me bring this up, I think this is an excellent comment, and I'm going to tell you why. It says propaganda is nothing new. It happens now. Of course it does. Look at the difference between Fox and CNN. It's like a battle for information choice. So it is.
Shout out James for the Meshuggah shirt. Don't think I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, hells yeah. Now, think about that. You can have a television show that does and says anything you want and try to sell it, and if people buy it, great. He's right. That's something that happens. But I think what we'll do next week is I'm going to pull up Rapai's triune brain method, because he puts it out there for everybody. You could actually watch it if you want, but we'll pull it up and we'll dissect it, much like Yuri Bezmenov put out the processes, the pieces to how they go about mind controlling or brainwashing the masses of their enemies. So too will we go into the commercial side of things, so that you have the tools to see the messaging or what's going on behind the messaging, so you can understand it and make more sound choices for yourself and make the choice. Hey, do I participate in this or not? Do I buy this or not? Because oftentimes we tie our identities to these things and to people and to movements, because I don't know, for some reason, humanity feels obligated to identify with something or belong to some groups. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel more comfortable, I think. I really truly
because
do.
we're social creatures. So we want to be we want to be in a social group of some kind, and so they appeal to that.
Then there was just this study, right, that just came out, and I found this perusing I think it's phys.org, because that's what nerds do. And there's a new study, and it's the first use of statistical physics or math, right? They used math and came up with an algorithm to corroborate the 40s theory on social balance, which is social balance theory. If you're into psychology, you'll know, like right here, they say it best. Most people have heard the famous phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, Northwestern University researchers have used statistical physics to confirm the theory that underlines this famous axiom. The study, proper network randomization is key to assessing social balance. That sounds like a great read right there. Geez, that one right there is it's in Science Advances. And if you want to spend some quality time, or you're an insomniac, read some of the publications out of that, and I'll tell you what, you will cure your insomnia. In the 1940s, it was Fritz Heider who introduced social balance theory. And it's another thing too, you know, Austria was like a hotbed from the mid to late 19th century into the 1950s. It was the centerpiece. It was like Vienna was the hub of psychology and human behavior. It truly was. And I mean, it continues to be very strong, but then that was the power center of this whole thing.
It was the research hub for all of that, basically.
That's right. And it says, according to the theory, 4 rules: an enemy of an enemy is a friend of a friend is a friend of an enemy is an enemy, and an enemy of a friend is an enemy, lead to balanced relationships. And he says, although countless studies have tried to confirm this theory using network science and mathematics, their efforts have fallen short as networks deviate from perfectly balanced relationships. Hence, the real question is whether social networks are more balanced than expected according to an adequate network model. So, of course, they went and they did the work, and they found that, guess what? It works, that the theory actually pans out. And so he says, we always thought this social intuition works, but we didn't know why it worked. So he said, all we needed to do is figure out the math. And if you look through the literature, there are many studies on the theory, but no agreement from them. And for decades, they kept getting it wrong. And the reason why is because life is complicated. It's not like an equation where the equation, if you do it out, it's going to be the same every time, right? Equations don't deviate.
There's variability
unless
in
you
it.
change a value, or you have variability, right?
Right.
But with humans, we're not as predictable as that. We have free will, and because we have free will, that makes us, kind of hard to simulate, in many ways, or to understand. And so he says, we realized that we needed to take into account both constraints simultaneously. Who knows whom, and that some people are just friendlier than others. And we can finally conclude that social networks align with expectations that were formed 80 years ago. Our findings also have broad applications for future use. Our mathematics allow us to incorporate constraints on the connections and the preferences of different entities in the system. So now, what does this mean, right? So this is great. Okay, we've just confirmed that the theory's sound, that it works. What do you think is going to happen now? Those people that wrote that paper are the same people like Cloward-Piven. Cloward-Piven just chooses to focus his efforts in the arena of commerce and retail, selling things, Wall Street, that kind of stuff. He's
Right. So now they have a more in-depth understanding.
Now they have a model.
They have a model of how social groups interact and how people engage within their social circles and whatnot, and they can use that math, an algorithm, to further manipulate people and target certain aspects of
because we humans are
whatever,
never satisfied. This is the problem, right? I heard Kent Hovind years and years ago.
Think about taking that model, right? Think about this, Joe. The first thing that's kind of popping in my head now, starting to think about this, is taking this model and applying it to, I don't know, your AI girlfriend, your AI friends. If you're lonely, now you have this model of a social structure, a social network, and how
know
that
all the buttons to press. Yeah, that's
all
right.
the buttons to press and all of that stuff. I mean, you can see the levels,
personalized experience. That's right.
Yes. Very
get the perfect partner, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it. There'll be a lot more of that. That kind of stuff is invaluable. But a guy by the name of Kent Hovind, who was a pastor down in Florida for years, they called him Dr. Dino because of all his work with dinosaurs and how they weren't millions of years old, but thousands of years old, right? And he went and basically said, you know what's funny about humans? The people that have money, they're never satisfied with money. People with shoes are never satisfied with more shoes. They always want more. They always want to take it to the next level, always pushing the envelope, always going where, you know, angels fear to tread oftentimes. And we always seem to, the pendulum swings very actively in each direction, right?
Right.
It ends up being just like I said, that top boom, 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 and then all of a sudden, bam, and you never know what that thing is that happens. You know, we had for example, like the war on drugs. Obviously didn't work. We've known for a long time prohibition doesn't work. We've killed countless people, millions and millions of people, whether it been through suicide because they've blown their brains out, or because we've killed them with poisonous alcohol that wasn't supposed to be there, and then they ended up drinking it and dying in the Prohibition era. We've decided that, oh yeah, we'll just take it away because that's what humans do, right? When we tell them no, they just listen and they stop.
Or the countless people that have just died because of a dangerous black market that has been created.
It creates a myriad of problems that it's hopeless to solve and only makes things worse. Every time that you take away freedom of choice from a human, you mess with the free will of humanity. It always goes sideways when you try to control it. Something always goes off the rail. You can't foresee everything yet. I don't know. Maybe AI will start to solve that issue, or who knows? But at this point in time, it doesn't work. And we just keep on doing it, and it keeps on making things worse. Your point, right? There used to be opium dens all over they were common in America and Europe and everything else. And if people wanted to go, they'd smoke their opium, they'd do their thing at the opium den, they'd leave. They made it illegal. Well, what happens? Now you got a black market for it. As time goes on, you start having science take over, and they start manipulating the molecules of opium. And then you get this thing called heroin. And then, you get different forms of things, either through scientific advancement or whatever, but you have different forms that then they become illegal. DEA steps in.
It's wild.
And then they manipulate molecules. And then things get so dangerous and have so many side effects and so many things that the problem is far worse than the original problem you ever started with if you just left things alone.
If they just would have let the people smoke the opium.
Just smoke the damn opium, bro. Who cares? You know what I mean? But that's
right,
just it.
Right.
But we've gone and made things so gosh darn highly addictive and just gone off the rails, manipulating the molecules of these things, that they got things like crocodile. Your freaking flesh melts off. It's created all sorts of mental issues because it scrambles the brain and does brain damage. I mean, there's all sorts of things that these new concoctions, where if they just left things alone, everything would have been much better off. And it's the same thing with everything else. When you say no, humans immediately think workaround. Workaround.
Right. Exactly.
What's the workaround? Right? With pot, it was K2 and spice. Oh, that's great. And now this other crap that comes out that's screwing people up. You can't, as much as we want to do that and think we're doing the right thing, we're not doing the right thing. It's not. And there's got to be a better answer than the road we're going on. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like, Scotty, we're doing too well in that regard. I just don't, and I don't see, like, for example, there's absolutely no energy in this election coming up because there's absolutely no hope. Nobody has any hope. Nobody gives a crap about it.
People are too polarized. I mean, people have already made their choice. You're not going to convince any.
Yeah, and you look at the boneheads like we had earlier in the show. The guy there couldn't even explain modern monetary theory, a theory he purports to support, and he doesn't even know how to describe it.
That blew my mind. I'm actually
He's a senior economic advisor. I know.
I'm shocked at that. I'm gonna have to just like go back and watch that again, just out of pure like that was mind blowing. It was the stuttering and the stammer and the absolute clue to show that it's like they don't even know what's going on.
Because they don't care. They're being told. They're being told by whatever special interest or whatever whoever controls them. That control freak is telling them, "This is what you support. This is what you're trying to push through. This is what you're trying to get done." And you do it. You don't care about anything else. You're just trying to get it done.
By his logic, I can just fire my printer up right now and just print myself a bunch of money and then loan it to myself, and then I can clear myself of my own debt that I owe to myself. So, that's insane. It's crazy, man.
Well, that would be nice if we could do that, though. Quite frankly, society at one point in time used to be that way, right? Modern bankruptcy law was derived from, I hate to say it, because a lot of people probably all the people in the Free Palestine movement are going to say, "Oh my God, our whole monetary system is based on the old Hebrew monetary system, where every 7th year was a jubilee, and you forgave all debt and you let the land rest, right? No more debt every 7 years." Over in the over in Libya, right, when Gaddafi was running things, you couldn't charge interest. Interest was illegal. If you lent money, you couldn't charge interest because they were pushing back against the whole concept. There were so many different things that are going on that happen that people don't even realize, like, half the time what they're supporting, where it came from, why.
That's
and
the problem.
It's a shame.
That's also the issue that we have in society right now too, with this information overload and the ability to have access to all of this information. It's a double-edged sword, because now you have people who get surface level information and then they believe that they're an expert on it, when really, a lot of these subjects are very complex and there's a lot more to it than just what you see on the surface. And then you have people out there that are naive, out there supporting a cause that they really don't even understand, just because they saw a TikTok video that blurbs something about oppression and people being and they're like, "Oh, well, I identify with this," but you don't even really understand.
Or give them $7,000 to go protest.
That too, right?
Hey, give me $7,000. Okay, I'll go protest. Where you want me to protest?
But that's the thing is everybody now thinks that they're an expert on something, when really, I mean, you probably should do a little more reading and a little more research and whatnot.
Well,
and
we're out of time here, buddy. We're up against the end.
All right,
but I will tell you that many, many, many innocent people, 99.9% of people in other countries that are displaced and everything else, they had nothing to do with it.
Right.
They had nothing to do with it. And the only thing I can come up with in my head, because I've learned this the hard way, is life's not fair. That's why you take every day. Don't take it for granted, because when you do, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And yeah, it's in Gaza. It's far away. We're in the United States. We feel incredibly isolated, or not isolated, but if you were born in the United States or live in the United States or Europe or anywhere else right now, you're one of the luckiest humans in human history. Just consider it that way.
And not only that, before we go, I my whole thing on this is like, look, we have our own issues here in our own country that we really need to be focused on and worried about. And, whatever is going on over there, I mean, that's for them to work out. That's an issue that's been going on longer than 47, since 47. That's so. Yeah.
So have a good night, everybody. KGRADB.com, and we'll see you next week. Hasta luego.